This is Join Us in France, episode 285. Bonjour, I'm Annie Sargent, and on today's episode, I bring you a conversation with Elyse about how we think France will change as a result of the pandemic. Are we going to see long-term changes to French culture and habits once the pandemic is over? Dear listeners and Francophiles, you might be surprised about the list of changes we think will happen for sure. Show notes for this episode are on joinusinfrance.com/285. And if you're planning a trip to France, the site is chock full of great resources. You should check it out. Bonjour Elyse.
Bonjour Annie.
We are doing our second recording via Zoom. We are so hip.
We are so hip. We're so zoomy these days. Yes, we are.
So today we're going to talk about how things will change in France due to this pandemic. Like, is French culture going to change? I think culture in every country is going to have to change as we adapt to the new realities and we get used to them. But I thought of 20 specific things, and maybe you'll have more to add, Elyse.
Okay.
So I think, the first one I put down, because to me it's obvious, is that masks will become normal, in quotes, in France.
You mean masks just for walking out on the street and just like that, or masks in
public transportation, in busy areas especially? I'm not saying that when I go into my garden I'll put a mask on, but when people go and take the metro or the bus or go to the Louvre or go to places like that, which will reopen. I mean, the metro and the bus is reopening very shortly. The Louvre might take a little longer. Even if you go to a play, maybe we'll be able to go to plays so long as we wear a mask or something like that.
Yeah, I honestly think that the French mentality will make it difficult for people to accept that they have to just wear a mask to go out in the street. I think that there's an idea. I think most people do understand that to go inside a closed space, it's absolutely necessary. And certainly now it is, and for the near future, which really takes us into who knows when. But I really am wondering about whether most people will accept the idea that just to go outside, especially in dense city centers, which is where it's really, of course, the biggest problem, that it will be really necessary to wear a mask. There are cultures and countries where they've gotten used to this for so long that it doesn't seem to bother them. And let's be honest. I mean, there's a certain amount of making fun of all these people who show up as tourists in Paris, and go running through the museums wearing masks. I mean,
it's true. It's true. I always thought it was strange. But I think in the future, I won't think it's strange. I will think it's somebody who's being cautious and respectful and wants to protect people around them.
Yeah, I don't know if that's because they are thinking of other people or they're worried about themselves. But I think that will be necessary. And if the Louvre reopens, they already were having problems with too many people, and we're talking about making it restrictive to a certain extent. We both know very well that one small part of the Louvre is extremely crowded and the rest of it is almost entirely empty. But I think that for places like that, which of course are extremely important and will have to reopen, they're going to have to come to terms with a new policy about counting the people, about what I wonder, Annie, we've both been in supermarkets where they put foot marks down to show how you spend, you distance yourself to wait till they go to the cashier.
Right.
Are they going Are they going to do that? Can you imagine if they have to do that in the Louvre or places like Orsay? I mean, where people crowd around one painting. It's going to be hard.
Yeah.
I
think they're going to have to do lines with like a Disneyland type of thing, but, keep people away from each other more. And just for those paintings, in the Louvre, they could easily put the Mona Lisa, for instance, in a room that's close to an entrance. And then,
they could.
And just have people just line up for that and have them line up outside and then come in just to see that. Because that's what a lot of people want to do.
That's what a lot of people want to do. But think about the other thing, especially if we're going to use the Louvre as an example. The Louvre actually makes a fair amount of money, not with outside guides, people like you or me, but with their own guides who take people around for different thematic visits. Those visits, people crowd together. I mean, it's like it's a flock of birds, So what's going to happen is that all of that is going to have to be rethought. And maybe in museums, it will go almost exclusively to audio guides, because maybe. You can clean an audio guide. You don't have to worry about whether you hear the person who's talking. It's easier to guide people. So,
it's true. If you have an audio guide, you can stay away from other people. You can step away from them.
Other people.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And I think now this is curious. The announcement was that small museums will reopen as opposed to the big ones.
Right.
Okay. So I'm not sure what that means. What defines a small museum? Here in Toulouse, there is one small museum that is the only one that is going to reopen immediately, and that is the Musée Dupuy, which is a museum that has collections of things, and it's an old mansion from the Renaissance. So the rooms are small to medium size. So what does that mean? I mean, are they going to put two people in a room? I mean, this is going to be interesting to see.
We'll have to wait and see how the museums deal with this.
Weird.
All right, let's move on to my number 3, la bise. La bise, which is the thing we do in France. You kiss each other on the cheeks. I think it will not be as ubiquitous as it used to be. For instance, one of the things that kind of disturbed me a little bit when I moved back to France, having been away for 18 years, is the first job I had in a business, in an office environment. You were expected to go kiss everybody on the floor before you sat down to do any work.
Right.
These are not people I knew. I was the brand new kid. So the first day somebody introduced me, and after that I knew, because I'm French, that I was supposed to go kiss everybody. And you can't miss anybody because then, the pembèche qui fait pas la bise. Huh? So, I think that's done. We'll kiss family. But I'm like, if I show up at a choir concert where my husband is singing, you're expected to kiss everybody because they are the spouses and children of, other choristers that because you go to parties with them or whatever. I see these people twice a year. I'm not kissing them. Done.
Well, I'll go even further than that. And of course, it is true that I'm American, not French, but I won't do that with family either.
No family either. Yeah. So next time you can visit me, no kiss.
No kiss. No, nothing.
So what are we going to do instead?
We could do the bow, the Indian namaste kind of thing, which is fine as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
I've
seen people put their hand over their heart and can bow a little bit and say hello.
Yeah. I think it's kind of classy.
Yeah.
I mean, I always, to be very honest, I always revolted against the idea that I had to kiss everybody. I hated it.
Yeah, me too. Once I moved back from, when I had been living in France my whole life and that's all I knew, it was normal. But once I moved away and moved back, I was like, oh, this is such a drag. I don't know these people. It's especially with people I don't know. When it's family or friends or whatever, you put some heart into it. But like people you barely met, you're supposed to kiss them? Oh, forget it.
Well, I just feel like at least for the next, let's say between now and September or so, when people really have a clear idea of whether we're going to have a vaccination or whether there's going to be a real big second wave or not, I basically announced that there will be I will not kiss anybody. I mean, I just will not have anybody touch me, and I will not touch anybody. And that includes babies. Because there will be a baby coming back in the environment of this house soon. Yeah. And I have announced that, no, I will not do it. I mean, I don't know. Okay, this to me is like, I don't know where other people have gone. I don't know what they've done. And I don't want to take that chance. Yep. That's all.
Yep. I understand. Number 4, working from home used to be seen as a little bit strange. But now it'll be seen as almost normal and possibly even a bit of a privilege. Because, those of us who have been able to keep working from home have it a lot better than people who have to go and be with the public.
That is for sure. The big problem with that is that I think ultimately it's a very small percentage of the population that has work that they can actually do that way. I mean, you have to have a very specific kind of desk job to be able to do that.
Right, but even people with desk jobs in France didn't ever work from home. Like computers, software people, support people, that we know a ton of them. They didn't work from home. They had to go into an office every day. And now the government is saying, look, if you've been able to switch your employees to work from home, keep it that way. For the time being, keep it that way. And by the time they go back, they can go back to their offices, which means maybe we'll have a vaccine or the pandemic will have died down. By then they'll be like, well, it'd be nice not to have to pay the real estate to have all these people in an office because it's working just fine without it.
I think that there's a difference between, first of all, the different kinds of work that you do from home. But I would bet that a lot of people, even if they've been able to continue their work at home, not those who already were working really solitarily or solo in front of a computer, but there is an element of socialization that happens from working in an office with other people. Yep. And I think that maybe for the near future, for hygiene purposes, it's definitely going to have to stay that way as much as possible. And Macron is, in fact, encouraging all of that anyway. But I think that some people, in the end, would just as soon return to an office because you're very alone when you work off of a computer, and you can only do so. My sister, one of my sisters who, in fact, just retired, she said the last 3 weeks she spent 8 hours a day on Zoom in group conferencing, and she said it was absolutely exhausting. Yeah. It is far more to do it that way than it is when you're in person because you kind of get a head cue from somebody, you get this from somebody, So I think it'll be interesting because I don't know. I think that it's one thing when the government says, if you can do work from home, definitely stay home. When people are given more of a free choice, I really would like to see whether some people do not just decide to go back to an office or not.
Yeah, some will, some won't. I think it'll change some. Okay, number 5 is related, staggering work hours, which used to not be a thing. Like in Toulouse, we have this big problem with Airbus. Every morning at between 7:40 and 9 p.m., the belt route is a parking lot because everybody's trying to get to work at the same time. Right. I think large companies like Airbus are going to finally see the light. Yes. Whoever wants to start work at 6 a.m., let them.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think that might help to change all of that. I wonder, it's a real question, I have no idea. It depends on what kind of work, but I suppose that if they're doing assembly work, in terms of they're going to have shifts. I mean, I don't know what the shift situation is now in terms of, how many shifts a day do they have. I don't know if in France it's possible to do the 3 different shifts and do a 24-hour day. My guess is that not, but because in the States that they do have things like that.
Right.
And obviously certainly help. It would help congestion, it would help pollution, and it would help the density of the population inside factories. That's for sure.
Right. Number 6 is awareness of how important medical services are. Because, we've always known in France we are very, both very fond and very critical of our health system. But now we really see how important it is. And I think it's not going to be very soon that a politician is going to say, yeah, let's cut some dead wood at the hospital. We got to get rid of people, which they did. And they started doing that under François Hollande.